So then he started doing tests with external information, and he completely just forgot about the salts and bypassed that. Well, the salts were holding the memory. So that memory shows up in a cymatic pattern, which is what shows up when the water crystallizes.
And if people are scratching your head over cymatics, we break that the baseline definition down for the folks
So
at home.
any sound, any energy, anything like that, if you put it in water or another fluid, and sometimes with carbon, just to make it visible, you can actually see the patterns and the vibrations of things, different musics, different words, whatever.
So we know that vibrational frequencies are mathematical in nature.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
How much does that factor into an argument that this is a simulation?
So
If vibrational energy has the ability to bond with our own salts and etch that mathematical code that turns into letters,
yes,
that turns into sounds, or even is just being able to retrieve. If you were to retrieve the vibrational memory from out of the salt, it would come out as binary, wouldn't it?
well, but your brain works that way.
Right.
So you take and you look at like the tests that they've done with mice, where they will take one generation of mice and they will take a ladder and they'll put a treat at the top. And then the next generation of mice, when that one goes up to retrieve the treat, they give it an electrical charge. Well, then the next generation of mice after that, they won't even try and go up the ladder. They're like, nah, fuck that ladder. That information's already written into them, and it's already stored in there. And the same thing applies to all of us. There's information that's already stored, that's stored in those hard salts.
And that also includes trauma, that includes a lot of cognitive ability. It includes tapping into recess memory or cellular memory.
All the things that we consider common sense, there's a reason it was common. Like everybody was just kind of born with that knowledge. It was
We
just
had a
something you
lot of
came with,
fucking
you knew.
kids that were dead working in factories and fucking mills and shit. There are how many ever hundreds of thousands of fucking people that died building railroads there. I don't, when I heard you say that on Crow, that was the one third on Freeman show. It was like the one thing that I was like, I don't know, man. There's been dumb fucks pretty much the entire time. Like, when they talk about common sense, it's normally someone who's in their fucking 40s or 50s that are like, y'all don't have any common sense, knowing damn well that they went along a fucking journey not having any goddamn common sense. And the thing that you're like, well, at least I didn't do that. More often than not, it's because either you saw the direct consequences of someone else doing it, or there was someone in your family who had died from it, and the story was like, don't be like your dumbass Uncle Bill, because Uncle Bill decided to go ahead and drink 3 bottles of tequila and go fishing in the fucking river, knowing full damn well it was Russian and there was a fucking fall 3 miles down, that's right. So I mean, I take a little bit. I'd argue a little bit on that, but that's about the only point of contention that I had with anything that I heard you say on Freeman. And I don't know, man. You can tear a hole in that if you want.
Well, a lot of that is just to do with just the youth, where you're talking about, when you're talking about your salt information, it's more it's a more base thing. So like in your story, the next generation might be scared of water for no apparent reason. Like, now they shouldn't have taken it that way, but that, hey man, the water's bad. Kind of like Rain Man, where it's not really that, eloquent, there's not a real, it's more like an animal thought, because your dense salts are your
lizard
animal
brain.
Right. Exactly. So you're getting more of the animal instincts out of it.
Yeah.
Not your more higher mindedness. That's what's coming later. Well, and just like with that, your initial thoughts and your initial life is very family driven. So all of your knowledge is supposed to be coming from your ancestors, your family. It's all very family driven. So that is supposed to be what you're containing when you're young. And then when you're older, you get out and you move into the more etheric and you start working on things yourself and doing things yourself. Before that, it's all supposed to be very family driven. And you can see outside of even just the salts, because the salts, one of the big things that we talked about on the show there is where they're attacking them, that is very interesting, is aluminum. So aluminum actually shuts down your cell salts and stops the bioavailability of your cell salts. When I first figured this out, the first thing I did was call John Brisson, the nutritionist, and I'm like, hey, what does aluminum do to your cell salts? And because I figured it out from a Roman mythology story where Uranus, who was the sky god, spread his essence, which as an alchemist is aluminum, across the world in order to lock up the Titans, make them so they aren't bioavailable. Well, the Titans are salts. And I'm like, this same damn story is playing out right here. And so they're trying to shut down all of our dense root power. This is where you even look at like autism or Asperger's and things. Like even that Greta girl, she was explaining, I have Asperger's, I'm on the spectrum, so I don't really care about social things. I don't care about family, things like that. They're shutting down all of that root, and they're doing it in every single way. It's such an amazing thing to see, because we're talking chemtrails. Even if you don't believe in chemtrails, aluminum's an adjuvant in your vaccines. Your aluminum is one of the most easily vaporizing metals that there is. You can make it vaporize with a lighter, and people are out there cooking on it every day, eating all of their food from it, everything else. And
I did a show not too long ago about a study that came out where not only had they thoroughly documented chemtrails and the history of geoengineering in general, but they had an extensive study on the coal fly ash that is dumped. That's the black shit that we were seeing, the real dark chemtrail that went up over by your house.
Yep, the black one that they lay before the white one.
That's coal fly ash. And then they come in with barium and aluminum. And I know you have a theory about barium and aluminum, and I would like for you to share that theory.
Absolutely. So
of why that works.
If you look at aluminum, they're wanting you to breathe that in, but as they're doing it out in the air, that aluminum eventually is going to become inert. As it's falling through the atmosphere, it's eventually going to become inert. So if you look up barium and look up the reaction of barium and aluminum, barium actually keeps aluminum from oxidizing, which is how aluminum breaks down. So if you're spraying something that's particulated in order for people to take it in, but you also need it to maintain its integrity, what's the next thing you would mix into it? Something to help it maintain that integrity, which barium magically does.
And if you this is actually my favorite fucking part, because it ties it in fundamentally on a fucking mystic level. The periodic table of elements abbreviations for barium and aluminum are
BA and AL.
And what's that spell, kids?
Ball.
Man, who was Ball?
Yeah, who we during the last election cycle, if you missed Ball, then you apparently had your head in the sand, because supposedly Hillary Clinton was doing sacrifices to Ball and everything.
If you're not up on your Mideastern mythology, then I highly recommend that you take a lap around, I guess at least the Old Testament. But
Absolutely.
Baal was the golden calf, right?
Yep.
And if you go to Wall Street right now, what's the most famous fucking statue in it is the fucking golden calf. And then there's a little girl now that's standing across from it, all hands on her hips, and fucking what do we have is someone who is clearly, admittedly on spectrum and purpose driven, when fucking disconnected from everything outside of that purpose, with her pigtails and her hands on her hips, clearly being manipulated. And what fucking kills me, Ben, is fucking watching people go after the girl and not the people that are manipulating her.
Right.
And it's all these
when did it become acceptable to go after a freaking mentally handicapped 16-year-old girl?
Because it's fucking people in the woke community doing it. And if it's okay for them to do it, it's okay for everyone else to do it. And it fucking kills me, dude. Like, it couldn't be more clear that there are people taking advantage of the fact that there's this kid on the spectrum whose parents were fucking hardcore activists, whose fucking benefactor, or the guy who like made her Greta Thunberg fucking has himself a fucking green capitalist fucking environmental organization.
He has his own site. He was contacted.
Time. He went to seminars on how to fucking fundraise for green capitalism from Al Gore and a guy called, I think, David Blood, who said on camera, sitting there with Al Gore, this is a solution for long-term greed.
Right. You betcha.
And people that are light, love, energy, family, fucking are like, fuck this little kid, without even thinking, like, and no, oh, well, I'll admit that she's manipulated, and I'll admit, but oh, she makes me so mad. Fuck you.
What we have is a poor 16-year-old who's pouring her heart into something and doesn't know better. And you know what? Half you adults can't figure it out either. So why did you expect a 16-year-old little girl to? She just thinks these people are helping her.
Who, by the way, showed up programmable.
Right. Right.
Like, the amount of manipulation and for people to act like they give a fuck about community or human beings or fucking ascension or any of that shit, to like go out of their way to ignore the people pulling the strings to take a pot shot at the fucking product is like, wow, dude. It's weird for me to process, and like, and I understand that there is a chemical reaction that takes place in everyone to mass amounts of attention, positive, negative, whatever. Like, it does alter your perception, and if she's appearing like cocky or smug or fucking funny or whatever, dude, like, of course you got to scream at grown-ups and they clapped at you for it.
Yes.
Like, what 16-year-old kid wouldn't give all of their family members for a chance to do that to half of the room that this fucking product, this marketing fucking asset got away with doing? Are you fucking kidding me?